Hey guys, welcome back to On Deck. I'm Evan Charney.
And I'm Jason Chase. Today we're debuting our new segment, Weekly Headlines, as well as taking a look at the wild card round of the playoffs.
Let's get into it. All right, now we're going to get into our headlines of the week. First off, foremost, Game 162 is today. Field is set for playoffs, and the season is over. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, season's winding down, and teams are trying their best to make that World Series, get that pennant.
All right, pretty brief headline. Second headline we got is Judge's homer number 62, American League history has been made. I want to know where the ball is, or you may want to know where the ball is. A fan did luckily catch it. He is from Dallas, Texas, and he is not quite sure what to do with the ball yet, but the ball has been estimated at just about $2 million by an auctioneer.
That's a lot of money.
Absolutely.
That is life-changing money.
What would you do if you caught the ball?
Well, if I caught number 62, that is a piece of history that is invaluable that I am holding. So, first of all, I respect Judge a lot. I respect his game a lot. So what I'm going to do is I want him to get the ball back, but I'm going to have a few demands for the Yankees. So I call up New York. Hey, Yankees, I'll give you the ball back, but here's what I want. I want a 10-day contract, major league contract with the Yankees. I have to have at least either one at-bat minimum, or I have to pitch. I have to go on the mound and pitch. And I also want $500,000 and postseason tickets.
That's fair. Those are postseason tickets and money's fair. I don't know how you're going to do with that contract, though.
Well, think about how much publicity I would get, though.
Absolutely.
That would change my life.
I mean, the guy who caught it already definitely has a lot of publicity.
Yeah.
Personally, if it's estimated at $2 million, I'm going to want some money. That's gonna make me set for, not life maybe, but it's going to put me in a good standings, you know. I'll have my grocery money. I'll have money to put down payment on a house, whatever. But I'll also want some memorabilia. I want to meet Aaron Judge. I'll give him the ball. I'll probably want like a signed ball, a signed jersey, maybe a picture with the Yankees, but definitely at least a little bit of money from that. So,
how much money are you asking for?
Probably $500,000. I think Yankees are a pretty wealthy organization. They
got some money to throw around.
They have some money to throw around. So if it's for a piece of history, I think that they should give it up.
Yeah. So our next topic here, which is kind of a debate in itself, is Judge the single-season home run king? Because technically speaking, he is not. There are three people above him. You have Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, and Sammy Sosa. Now, a lot of people are saying Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame. However, they also call Aaron Judge the single-season home run king. And that doesn't really make sense to me because you are saying that Bonds is a legit player and that he belongs to be in the Hall of Fame, but you're not counting his single-season home run record. So that's a little odd to me. Another thing I want to touch on is Sammy Sosa. Sammy Sosa does have plausible deniability of steroid use. So the New York Times, back in 2003, they released a list of 104 MLB players that tested positive for steroids. The results were supposed to be anonymous at first, yet they still decided to release it. And also on that list is Hall of Famer David Ortiz. So that kind of makes me question, do you legitimately count that? Also, Sammy Sosa, he always denied using steroids during his playing career. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's definitely a fine line that you're walking there because MLB really just needs to stick to their story because that point about Ortiz being in the Hall of Fame, that raises some flags. The fact that Sosa never got officially caught while it was suspected, and you got David in the Hall, you don't have Sosa, but you don't have Barry, but you're still counting the records. It's a little iffy, so you need to keep your stories straight on that. But as far as I'm concerned right now, as far as the history books go, you got to keep what's already there. You can't really alter it too much. But in the back of our heads, in the back of my mind, Aaron Judge is the MLB leading home run champ that we 100% know positive is clean thus far.
He's clean, but do you crown him the official home run king of this single season, of course?
Of the single season, it's a fine line you got to walk, because Barry Bonds is a generational player, but his name has now been tainted, and you don't know 100% if you can go off of what he's produced based on those numbers because of his steroid use. So I'm undecided. I'm like right in the middle. I could go either way, really.
Bonds he was something special, but I think his reputation has been tarnished too much. I'm giving Aaron Judge the single season home run king.
Fair enough. A little bit more on Judge. Aaron Judge was this close to winning a Triple Crown award. He led the league in homers with 62 and RBIs. However, he just barely missed the mark with batting average. He was held from the lineup today by Yankees manager Aaron Boone, and Luis Arias of the Twins got the batting title.
Yep. So the last person to win the Triple Crown was Miguel Cabrera. He did it quite a few years ago. Hasn't happened very recently. It would have been really nice to see Judge win that. Unfortunately, he did not. And yeah.
I think Boone made the right call holding him from the lineup today. I know Judge would much rather be useful to his team in the playoffs than push for personal achievements. And if he got injured today in game 162, he would not be able to live with himself knowing that he would not be able to help his team make a postseason push.
What are the odds he gets injured on game 162?
That's the thing. You don't know. Baseball is a hard sport and it's a dangerous sport. Players get injured all the time, and personally, if I'm a manager, I would not want to risk that. If he was on a team that was not in the playoffs, that did not have a chance of making a deep push, it would be a different story. If he was on the Rockies or Diamondbacks or some other eliminated team, you keep him in the lineup, you push for that Triple Crown. But the Yankees are ranked number 2 in the playoffs, and they have the team to make a deep postseason push. So if I'm a manager, I'm not putting him in that lineup. I'm not risking him getting injured just for some stats. Yes, having a Triple Crown award would have been nice, but a World Series is much better in my opinion.
Well, I mean, you can play cautiously, though. Like Bryce Harper did that in his contract year. And you are robbing Aaron Judge at a chance at history. Not only would he have gotten the single-season home run record, he also would have won the Triple Crown. That is, and right before his contract year as well. I don't know. If he gets a Triple Crown, maybe he makes more money. Maybe it's a little smart move there by the Yankees.
I don't know. I think it's a tough call, but from a managerial standpoint, you got to keep him out, in my opinion. So,
I say you play him.
I guess that's up for debate, but what can you do? So for our next topic, we have the Braves officially clinched the NL East a couple days ago, and they won that over the Mets, who had been leading that division and that league for most of the season, majority of the season, for at least 100 games. Mets were on top, but this last couple weeks, the Braves just went on a hot streak, and they made a push, and they kicked the Mets right out of that spot.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to what they did last year. Braves, they did not look hot at the All-Star break. They didn't look super hot this year, but they did look better. And they just went on this insane tear second half of the season, and they clinched that first place spot. Good on them.
Good on them. And for our last topic for headlines of the week, we have the Mariners have finally ended their 21-year playoff drought. And Seattle Mariners fans around here are rejoicing. They're over the moon. And honestly, this is a win for America and baseball in general, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, they were nicknamed America's team last season, but they missed the playoffs, unfortunately. Still America's team this year in my eyes. I'm definitely rooting for them on the AL side. Of course, I'm rooting for the Padres on the NL side. But is it worth the wait? Will they be able to make a deep postseason run?
That's a tough one. You got to wait and see, first of all. But in my opinion, I don't know if they're going to have what it takes. I don't know if they have the foundations for a deep playoff push. But we'll get into that a little bit more when we talk about the playoffs.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
It is good to know that they are now, since their drought is over, the longest reigning droughts for MLB postseason are the Angels and Tigers, now tied with 8 years. Ohtani and Trout have not been able to make that push over the edge to make the Angels make the playoffs, and Miggy Cabrera and Javi Baez have not been able to get the Tigers carried on their back. So hopefully in the next coming years, we'll see what they can do.
Hopefully. Also for the Tigers there, I'd argue you didn't even say the best players.
True.
Most recognizable names, though.
True. All right. Now we're going to get into playoffs. This year's playoffs are a little bit different than traditional in the past. It's a little bit of an expanded field. So instead of 10 teams, you have 12 teams with 4 or 6 wild card teams instead. So there's 2 extra wild card games.
Quickly, what are your thoughts on the expanded playoffs? Are you for it? Are you against it?
I did the math, and
I've been doing math.
Originally, the playoff percentage for teams to make the playoffs, it was 10 out of 30, which is a 33 right down the middle. So pretty like a third of the teams in the MLB would make the playoffs. But now it's up to 40%. So that's, 2/5? So I don't know. It gives baseball, it's more of a revenue booster in my opinion.
It is.
MLB just really wants to make more money off of it, and allowing a couple more teams in gives people more chances to buy MLB merchandise and just get a little bit more publicity and money.
And also the wild card series, it's now a series, not just a game.
Yeah.
Before it was 1 game, now it's 3, and you got more teams playing. That's a lot more revenue for MLB teams.
Absolutely.
So I think it's honestly a win-win situation. The owners get more revenue. Sure, you take away some of the competitive aspect of baseball, like the 2 wild card teams. They didn't win their division. They barely made it in, so they battle it out, and then they play the 1 seed. So yes, that competitive aspect is taken away, but you get more teams in the postseason, and I think it's overall good for the game.
Absolutely. And a little bit more about that expanded field and how that affects the playoff bracket. So for the wild card series, again, it's not just 1 game. It's now a 3-game series for each of the 8 teams. And then for the division series, you have 5 games. The championship series for each, you have 7 games. And of course, the World Series will remain at 7 games. So let's go a little bit into the postseason picture. For the American League, number 1 seed, Houston Astros. Number 2, you got the Yankees. Number 3, you have Cleveland, and they will play the 6th seed Tampa in one of the wild card games. And the 4 seed, you have Toronto Blue Jays against the number 5 seed Mariners, who will play the other wild card team game. And you have the Yankees and the Houston both having byes for the first round.
Yeah, so in the National League side, you have the Dodgers, who are the 1 seed, the Braves, who are the 2 seed. Both of them will get byes for the first round. They will not play in the wild card series. For the first matchup here, you have the Phillies, the 6th seed, and then the Cardinals, the 3 seed. Of course, the Cardinals won their division, so that's why they are the 3 seed, despite not having a better record than the Mets. Interestingly enough, they are a higher seed than them. And then you also have the Padres, who are the 5 seed, against the Mets, who are the 4 seed, and the Padres and Mets winner will go on to play the Dodgers. The Phillies and Cardinals winner will go on to play the Braves.
And on the American League side, the winner of Tampa-Cleveland will go on to play the Yankees in the division series, and the winner of Seattle and the Blue Jays will go on to play Houston. So let's go into our first matchup that we have, which is between the 4 seed Mets and the 5 seed Padres. The Padres and the Mets were both in the National League, of course, so they played a couple times throughout the year. The Padres ended up taking the season series 4-2 games against the Mets this year. We do have a Game 1 matchup for starting pitchers. You have Max Scherzer, who has been confirmed, and Yu Darvish is lined up to take the ball. Other couple notable pitchers that you have to look for this series are Joe Musgrove and Blake Snell for the Padres, and for the Mets, DeGrom and Chris Bassett. But DeGrom is a little bit iffy because what the Mets are doing, they're being cautious with DeGrom, so they're starting Max. And if they win the first game, then the second game they're going to start Bassett. But if they lose the first game, then the second game they're going to start DeGrom.
Yeah, basically they're saving DeGrom for that elimination scenario when they need him the most. And DeGrom came off an injury not too long ago, so they want to preserve his health as long as they can. If they win with Scherzer and Bassett, they're very happy with that. So let's talk about some keys for both sides to win here. Keys for a Padres win: quiet the trumpets. When you hear those trumpets and Edwin Diaz is coming out of that bullpen, man, that is a feeling. You are just screwed. There's little to no chance of you winning that game. So quiet the trumpets. That's how the Padres are going to win. And the offense, except for Soto and Machado. The Padres' offense has been very streaky this year. However, I'm pretty confident that Soto and Machado will both show up, but I want to see who's around them. So some names I want to look for. I want to look for Myers, Bell, Profar, and Kim to show up. So Myers, in his career versus Scherzer, has actually had some success. 7 for 25, 280 batting average, 308 on base, 988 OPS, almost at 1,000, with 2 homers against him. Josh Bell versus Scherzer, 5 for 12, 417 batting average, 563 on base, almost a 1,500 OPS. And Ha-Sung Kim has kind of had an underrated year this season, filling in for Tatis, who is now out for the year, busted for steroids. He has a 5.1 WAR in the year. I don't think anyone saw that coming. That's higher than Zach Gallen and Trey Turner of the Dodgers, which is absolutely insane to me.
Absolutely. I fully agree. Those Soto and Machado, you can pretty much expect that they're generational talent guys. They're going to put up the numbers that you're going to want to see. And definitely those guys are for sure ones that you want to look out for and that need to produce in order for the Padres to have some success. But I think another guy that you got to look out for is Jake Cronenworth. Utility, shortstop second, his fielding you got to use in the field. It's going to be really important that he plays well defensively on the defensive side of the ball. But also you got to make sure that he's got some batting average, he's got some hits, he's got to get on base, he's got some speed if they can use it.
The grown zone. All right, so here's some keys for a Mets win. The starters have to deal. I'm pretty confident that they will, but if they do not deal, it's going to be a really tough time for the Mets. Obviously, you have DeGrom, Scherzer, and Bassett. That's a really good starting 3. So as long as they can deal, you'll be fine. And a guy I want to look out for is Francisco Lindor. You pay him $341 million, he's got to perform in the postseason. And his energy, what he can bring to a ball club, how he can change the game, not only with the bat, on defense as well. He can make a highlight reel play that can change the momentum of a game. And his offense as well, it's really good. It's been better this year as compared to last year. Looked a lot like the guy he did on the Guardians.
Absolutely. A couple guys that I want to look out for on the Mets are Pete Alonso and Jeff McNeil. Jeff McNeil leads all of MLB in batting average thus far. He needs to produce if the Mets want to have success. If he can keep up his hot streak, the Mets are going to be looking real good. And of course, you got Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso has done great things for the Mets so far, and again, this year's no different. He's put up some really good numbers, has good amount of home runs that has definitely helped the Mets find some success this year and getting into the playoffs this season.
So you're keeping your eye on the flying squirrel and the polar bear.
Oh, absolutely. Polar bear's got to eat.
Oh, yeah. Also, one note for the Mets-Padres series, Starling Marte, a big player for the Mets, is unlikely to play in the wild card series due to a broken finger. He should hopefully be back should the Mets win.
All right, now we're going to get into our next series, which is going to be between the Phillies and the Cardinals. The Game 1 matchup is to be determined for now, but a couple Cardinals pitchers to look out for are Jack Flaherty, Jordan Montgomery, and Adam Wainwright. And for the Phillies end of it, you have Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, and Ranger Suarez.
Yeah, so some keys for a Cardinals win here is the last dance. You have Molina, he's in his final season. Pujols is also in his final season. Wainwright could be in his final season, but the Cardinals might throw some more money at him. That'll convince him to return. And then pitching. Pitching needs to step it up. They have not been good recently. Wainwright has dealt with dead arm in September, and he has not been good late. That is pretty concerning for me. For me, Wainwright should have gotten the ball Game 1. He still might, but he might have also pitched himself out of the rotation dealing with dead arm and all. Jordan Montgomery, he had a really good start with the Cardinals, but he has a 5.33 ERA in the past 30 days. Miles Michaelis, however, looked pretty good the last 30 days, 3.12 ERA. And Jack Flaherty, he is coming off an injury. He's made 3 or 4 starts. And he did look himself last time against the Padres. 6 innings pitched, 9 Ks. He still needs to clean up the walks a little bit. He has had at least 4 walks in his last 3 starts, and you just really can't do much with that. That's awful. But if his command comes back, he is the ace that the Cardinals need to make a deep postseason run.
Absolutely. For me, the only guys that I'm looking at on the Cardinals are Albert Pujols, Adam Wainwright, and Yadier Molina. You got to see those vets, see what they can do with, like you said, their last dance. This is their last chance at making a deep playoff push. I'm thinking all eyes are going to be on them, and they're the ones that should have all focus on them.
Yeah, it's a really nice story. All right, so some keys for a Phillies win. They've been saying a red October. And if they... So here is the big thing for me. I think everyone's looking at Wheeler and Nola as the big starters, but I'm looking at Ranger Suarez. Because if one of those guys lose, Suarez needs to step up and be that guy. And also, something to keep in mind, all of the games are played away. And Ranger Suarez has a 3.2 ERA on the road as opposed to a 4.27 at home. You normally see that the other way around, but that's just how he is.
Absolutely. And another thing to look for the Phillies that they need is Kyle Schwarber, who's been having a monstrous season for them so far. Massive guy, hits lots of homers. He cannot carry the Phillies offense all alone. He's going to need some help. But again, I think one of those guys that's going to be able to help him out is been a little bit under the radar this year, but still a very good defensive catcher and offensive, is JT Realmuto. He's a guy that I want to see really help the Phillies this year. He needs to get on base. He needs to be a brick wall behind the backstop, and he needs to make an impression and help those Phillies out.
Something that's kind of slept on, JT Realmuto, he went 2020 this season. He's the first catcher to do that in a while. I don't know exactly, but first one to do it in a while.
Absolutely. Now moving on to our next series, we have the Mariners against the Blue Jays. Mariners went 5-2 games against the Blue Jays this year. For the Game 1 matchup, it has been confirmed. We will have Luis Castillo versus Alek Manoah. And a couple other guys that you got to watch out for the Blue Jays are Kevin Gausman and Jose Barrios. And for the Mariners, you have Robbie Ray and either George Kirby or Logan Gilbert.
Yeah, it's also possible that the Mariners use a combination of those two in that third game if they really have to. So some keys for a Mariners win here. Luis Castillo needs to last longer than 5 innings. Do you want to talk some more about that?
Absolutely. Past 2 games that Luis Castillo has pitched, he's only pitched about 4.1 and 5.1 innings, which is not what you really want to see coming from your ace. You're going to need a little bit more than that.
Yeah, so a player that I have my eye on, it's still a Mariners starter, it's Robbie Ray, because he can do really well. And the way that the format is, if the Mariners win Game 1 with Castillo on the mound, they need Ray to shut it down, and here's why. Do you trust rookie pitchers George Kirby and Logan Gilbert in an enemy environment in Canada where they are not very familiar with it? Do you trust them Game 3? Personally, I don't.
Tough call, but
yeah.
I think you're onto something there. And if they do come to Game 3, that it's going to have to be some sort of combination between George Kirby and Logan Gilbert to get the job done. So for now, we will move on to our last series, which is Cleveland versus Tampa. Cleveland did end up winning the season series against the Rays 4-2. Game 1 matchup is confirmed. You're going to have Shane McClanahan and Shane Bieber taking the mound. And a couple other pitchers to look out for the Rays are Corey Kluber and Tyler Glasnow, who just got back from injury, and Tristan McKenzie for Cleveland.
So Battle of the Shanes, Game 1. So some keys for a Guardians win. I have a couple sleepers to keep your eye on. Josh Naylor and Oscar Gonzalez, and here's why. The Guardians do pretty much everything right. They have good pitching, they don't strike out a lot, and they play good defense. But you know, they're lacking that thump, and that's what Josh Naylor and Oscar Gonzalez can provide.
Absolutely. And my guy that I want to watch out for is Steven Kwan, who's been a rookie this year and part of that rookie offense and defense that Cleveland has so desperately needed and has helped them get to the playoffs this year. and he hits for average, doesn't swing and miss that often, and he gets on base, and he's pretty fast out there in left field and on the base pass.
Yeah, kind of an old school player. You love to see it. So some keys for a Rays win, it's going to be their offense. Their pitching is going to go out there and shove. They have so many arms out there, and their bullpen is insane. So they have their offense. They don't have many big names, but they're kind of sneaky. Yandy Diaz, 400 on-base percentage for the season. That's a great table setter for Rosarena and Franco and the rest of that lineup. The key is just going to be get guys on base for Rosarena. We've seen what he can do in the postseason, and I think he'll do it again.
Absolutely. And one other guy that I want to watch out for is Wander Franco. He just got a massive deal from the Rays, got some solid defensive game at shortstop, and he can hit the ball. So hopefully I'd like to see him make a really good impression for the Rays in their postseason push.
Yep.
Unfortunately, that is all the time that we will have for today. But be sure to like this video, subscribe to Cable 8 on YouTube, and follow us on Instagram at Wazoo Sports Network and Cable 8.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.